All right, everyone, welcome. Welcome to another Group Fitness Report. I'm here with Stephen Trotter. So excited to share with you our tips and tricks and advice when it comes to remote communication as a group fitness manager. So, welcome again. This is episode 8 of our continuous monthly series for group fitness managers specifically. And Stephen Trotter, I've known him, and he's like a well-known speaker in the industry. I've known him for a long time, but we had just recently met each other in person. And I say recently, but it was a year ago at the Athletic Business Show in Texas last year. And I went to his session, and it was all about remote communication. And in my previous videos, you've probably seen me share how difficult it is as a group fitness manager specifically to reach out to your team, to connect with your team, to keep them connecting with each other when they're like ships in the night and they're passing each other. We're lucky to catch them for the hour that they teach, maybe once a week or a few times a week. So Stephen has so many great pieces of advice, but first I want to share or ask him to tell us some of the mistakes that he's witnessed group fitness managers make when it comes to leading their team and communicating with them remotely.
Absolutely. Thank you. And thanks, Staci, for having me here today. I'm excited to be with you all. So when it comes to mistakes that a group fitness manager might make when it's handling communication, I think really the biggest one is not having a plan. And even though that might be the simple one, it's more complex than just at surface level of not having a plan. And I say that with meaning that you really have to get clear about your communication. And when I say get clear about your communication, like who is it you're actually communicating to? And yes, you may be like, if you're managing group fitness instructors, you're like, okay, it's group fitness instructors. But is it your cycle instructors? Is it yoga? Is it your instructors located in this region? If you're in or if you're at a national level of management, you might have certain needs based on what region of whether you're in the US or outside of the US and what those needs are. So really thinking about who it is that you're communicating with and what it is that you need to communicate with them. And based on that, a lot of times we don't have an understanding. We have meetings to have meetings. We have calls to have calls. And if we don't have that purpose and that agenda, it tends to get chaotic. And when you think about that also, it's like, why are we even communicating? Because if you can answer those questions, that can really lead you to answering the question of where are we communicating and how. And we have this conversation a lot of like, you're doing a recorded 45-minute webinar for your instructors to watch, and you're asking them to watch a 45-minute webinar. And really also, if you're managing instructors in different states inside of the US, that can mean different things from an employee or 1099 standpoint if you're requiring them to do that. So thinking about, is this in a synchronous environment where it's a meeting where we're all together, or am I recording bite-sized information that can be digestible by the instructor at any point, anywhere? And so I would say that main mistake is we don't actually invest energy to set up that plan. And because of that, we kind of lose control as we start to deploy whatever that next quarter or whatever that next schedule is in our teams.
I love it. And so, yeah, part of the plan is, like Stephen said, identifying what needs to be synchronous or happening in a two-way conversation, what needs to happen asynchronously, which is also that is like a whole other plan in itself. Like you said, the option of bite size versus long form, and then identifying how you're going to maybe compensate them for the time they're spending absorbing that communication. And then I love that you mentioned being specific for who you're speaking to. And I have to say, what I love about this conversation is that with group fitness managers, even if you're managing a small team, you might be thinking to yourself, like, I don't need remote communication. I get a chance to see them quite a bit. But when you do record those bite-sized kind of nuggets that you're trying to share with your team to improve them or get the word out, there's times where you could repurpose that content, which can be kind of fun. And you're so right. If you had a plan, then there's so much more you can use and reuse for the future.
Yeah,
Awesome.
absolutely. And I even think to myself when most of my time is spent in management or, consulting now, and I still teach on occasion, but I think back to at one point, probably 5 years ago, I taught classes regularly in a club system where we had 5 clubs inside of the same city, and instructors taught at all 5 locations. And even though we went to all different 5 locations, the population at each of those locations was different. The needs were different. And even that, like, you're running across the city every day going to a different club. And so, you have to kind of think of like, what was my experience as a instructor in a multi-site location? Or again, a lot of times group fitness managers are not in club. They are work from home or only a couple hours a week to stop in.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, putting yourself in their shoes. Like what are some ways that I could communicate with them to make it easier for them? And I'm sure having a plan would really help, because I know that sometimes when I'm about to schedule a meeting and I want to talk about some housekeeping items, I can't help, I have to sometimes stop myself and go, this could go in an email. Like, do not waste your time in an opportunity to talk to your team about that. So yeah, content, the format, love it. Always just develop that plan and tweak it as you go, as the year evolves, right? I'm sure as instructor, as group fitness managers, where the seasons change, how do you tweak
Yeah.
that communication to fit what they're going to really want to absorb? Love it. And then really, you talk about so many great tools in your session about remote communication. So what are some of the tools you use when it comes to working with your team offsite to help them understand what's going on?
Yeah, great question. A lot of one of the things that I'm actually in my background, also, I'm a Gallup certified strengths coach. So I do a lot of work with employee engagement and employee well-being and all of those types of things. So I think to the Gallup Q12 of like Q1 being what is my job, what's expected of me, and how am I evaluated? And then Q2 being, do I have the tools and resources to do my job successfully? And I always have that as a manager and leader, I always have that in my mindset of, because those first 2 questions are not on the employee, it's on the manager. It's my responsibility to make sure that they know what's expected of them, and also that they actually have the tools and resources to do their job. So I bring that up because that has to be very, very clear to the instructor, and that determines what tools, sites, and resources. And I'm a big fan of like saying no to email, because it can, especially inside of an organization, and it gets lost. You're like searching for things all the time. And I think, like I gotta have this like streamlining process where like first I'm thinking about choosing my method of communication. And a lot of times if it's just a quick back and forth, Slack is great for that. If you're in a club organization where you are an Office 365 organization, you have access to Teams if you're in a corporate setting. But Slack is great for that. And it ties into other things, whether it's like, you always have the opportunity for your instructors or any of your team members to chat with you, and using something like Calendly, or if you're in an organization where you have the Office suite bookings is available to you, and you can create those different types of meetings. And I use Calendly heavily, and it's all built out to, if I'm offering, like, for example, well-being coaching services, that is not a public link, and only my clients have access to that, so I can share them with that. And then it's like 15-minute meetings. Or if you're let's say you're in a district management role where you might have 3 to 5 clubs, you can actually put all your club sites in there, and you can arrange travel time. So if you want to meet with instructors at a certain site, they can indicate where they want to meet with you if it's in person. Or if you're already going to meet virtually, it will automatically tie your Zoom link to it, and it sends out the reminders, and it does all of that for you. So, I mean, really, when I'm thinking about the things that I use the most, it's like Slack, Calendly, and then, group fitness specific, you need that home base. And I try not to use the word Basecamp, because there is a program called Basecamp, which is fantastic if that is what your need is. So when I say Basecamp, I mean like visual, you go back to Basecamp, not the platform Basecamp, which is also great. But that's where like GroupX Pro comes into play, where it manages, thinking about your announcements of like, here's an opportunity for me to post information to, whether it's instructors at these locations, this location, this region, and then it goes out to the proper audience. So it doesn't get convoluted with information where you're like, well, I don't teach in this region, so why am I getting this? And then it also houses those quick tools and resources that it's, whether it's SOPs or it's whatever that an instructor might need to do their job effectively, or the tools and resources, they have access to it. For example, in one of the organizations that I work, our fitness director, she, records videos of herself going through different studio closets, going through the systems, so the instructors can get a refresh at any time, and it's all on demand. And this is all housed there. And especially if you're in that remote situation, like having that system where you're not texting back and forth about subs, you're not emailing out, where Group Expert not only manages the actual instructor schedule, it manages the subs, the bios, the locations, the class descriptions. And so if there is a change, it automatically pushes that to your sites or wherever it is that people need. And that's like, I live and breathe automation. And so I try to find any way to create a pathway that will do something that a person doesn't have to do.
Oh my gosh, so good. So I'll unpack that for later. I'll put that in the description. I was like literally writing frantically while he was naming off these great tools, so that I can put them in the notes of this recording. So you can just look in the comments section or the description section, and you'll find all of the links to those tools, which is so helpful. And I love that you mentioned that email is not necessarily the greatest place to send some forms of information, because there's also those like reply all people, right? who definitely help you in assisting to lose everything that you just sent the team because someone hit reply all, it all got bunched together, and your whole team is just seeing can someone sub for me on Thursday or something, just because they have all the contacts right there. But that was so amazing. He just gave us like several tools. But like you said, Slack for quick back and forth, Teams for team meetings. We could do Zoom, you could do, but more of that synchronous two-way conversation. Something I tend to do too is similar to GroupX Pro, what you just mentioned, is providing those resources. I usually will record our team meetings and then place them in, like you said, a GroupX Pro, or a place where if an instructor missed it or couldn't make it, they can go back and on their own time. That's what's so amazing about GroupX Pro is, like you said, they can find what they need when they need it, but you do need to have those other spaces to communicate one-on-one. And Calendly, I don't know, my life would not work without Calendly. Wow. Like, oh my gosh, it's amazing. And I'm so glad you brought up that you can, create parameters around who can book what with you, basically like security preferences. So whoever has that link can do it. And then, like you said, how annoying is it when you have to go back and forth to find a time to meet with someone? It's annoying for you as the manager. It's annoying for your instructors to try to figure out a time. So that way you could schedule maybe the annual review, give them the link, and they can schedule it themselves. There's no back and forth. And if it's virtual, just like you said, those links come to you automatically. It's amazing. And calendar invites and everything, and reminders.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And especially if you're in a situation where you cross time zones, like even, and I like pandemic, I was in different time zones all the time, much more than I am now. I still travel quite a bit, but not to the extent as I was before. But it like always knows where you're at, so it doesn't let you double book. And always, I halfway joke, but I'm not joking because like I said, pre-pandemic, when I was traveling all the time, I'm like, I literally live and breathe by Calendly, the Marriott app, and the American Airlines app, because it tells me where I need to be at all times.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's so funny. That's so funny. Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, you like you said, you've created this automation, because there's times where Steven, you guys have to definitely follow him after this, but I'm wondering, like many of you will, once you start following him, you're like, how on earth is he in 6 places at one time? How is this happening? So that's what helps him accomplish all that he does. And then I also wanted to ask, because you mentioned Basecamp, is that a similar tool or resource to like a Trello?
Yeah, it's basically, it's like project management. It's great for Trello, like it's similar to Trello. And I actually utilize both. Like Trello you have the ultimate creativity of doing what you want with Trello. It's completely free. And it's a great project management software that ties into all those other systems that we just talked about. And Basecamp, in most of my settings, we use Basecamp for more marketing purposes. And when I say marketing, like marketing projects, because you can isolate the project, you can assign people to it. So if you're having, whether it's retreats or meetings, you could almost create that as a Basecamp project and you communicate into that. So that's one of the ways when it comes to design work. We have a project where we just recently hosted a group fitness house party. So when the marketing material started to get created, anytime that we were communicating about that, it was within inside that Basecamp. And you may never see your designer in person, but you can communicate through Basecamp and finalize those drafts. I remember like not even that long ago, maybe like 2014, that like the designers from the marketing team would walk into my office with like a printout and I would mark it
Right.
up and then send it back to them. And now I'm just like on my phone, I'm like approved.
Oh my gosh, it's amazing. Yeah, there's so much you can do on your own now when you feel like doing it, that's
Yeah.
really what you should be doing because you're so right. Yeah, I remember walking literally to marketing and like bringing a paper over there and like going through it with them. But yes, so if you're again, and it's a group fitness manager who's like, well, why would I like need my team to look at Trello to like project manage with me? But you really could use their expertise and their ideas if you incorporate, you have these instructors who, like you said, are doing a retreat or doing a workshop. You could work with them. They can go in on their own, update things. It's all in one place. And then when you're ready to check on their work to see, what kind of outline they're going to make for the workshop, what the marketing calendar is that you want to create, and then your marketing team can become a part of that. So it's absolutely a valuable tool, whether you're a big kind of conglomerate facility that needs multiple people who has a marketing team. You might be going, I don't have a marketing team. It's my
So
husband
it's me.
or something. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. It's someone who I know that let them help me with this, or their graphic designer I happen to know. But they could be a part of that process. So I love that you're mentioning these tools. And they do work together with these other tools, which I need to be better about connecting the dots because I'm not as good about doing that. But that's so
Yeah,
valuable.
there's so many different tools. And the last one I'll kind of mention,
Mhm.
even though, like I've mentioned like 35, I feel like, but
Yeah.
like if you're unsure of the connecting piece with your existing tools, Zapier is pretty inexpensive. And I think there's some premium options too that will actually do the connecting for you. So if you don't know how or don't want to, invest the energy to get them, most of like Calendly, Slack, all that stuff automatically talks to each other. But you can do some really cool stuff if you turn on Zapier and you can actually force things or like set up a pathway and it will do awesome things for you. We've hosted like a regional fitness conference before, and our entire instructor like approval process, who we're going to be the presenters, and we do a lot of like large scale events, and we'll use Zapier and it zaps things to the Trello board. It notifies instructors of their locations, and you can do some really cool stuff with it.
That's amazing. Yeah, because tools are amazing, but sometimes it can become so overwhelming with all these different
Yeah.
pieces and then updating them separately. So yeah, I love that. Yeah,
Yeah.
Zapier is a great option. Um, oh, awesome. Okay, so yeah, we've given you like a million, and I'll try to run it down and kind of categorize them as well in the show notes. But the last piece or last question I have for you is, where do you see communication and group fitness management going? And we kind of touched on this when we were giving you the laundry list of tools, but what is kind of the future of group fitness communication, and what are some other creative ways that we can reach out to our teams and collaborate with them?
Yeah, just like we started the conversation with, I said that, the number one mistake is not having a plan. To sum up this question, it's like where we're going is power in your fingertips. Like it's like this is really like this is your life, whether you want it to be or not. Like you can use it for good or you can use it for bad, but just like most things, right?
Mhm.
But we want information, and I work heavily a lot of times with college students. So, even though our typical college student profile is changing, we're definitely heavy right now, Gen Z, even though there's your quote unquote non-traditional learners. But I mean, we're in an environment where we were kind of joking around where we're in the TikTok world where if you don't like something, you just swipe up or you swipe left. And if you're having a conversation with somebody and they are no longer interested, they walk away. And like, what is it that you're going to do to, the powers at the fingertips? How are you going to provide the information that people want to hear, but they also need to know? And it's using, I don't like using the term out of the box or anything like that, but it's really just truly meeting people where they are and meeting your instructors where they are. And, your instructors in any part-time role, you're going to have people that, I am doing this because I like it. I go in and teach my class, I interact with members, and I leave. You're going to have people who are like, I am coming to other people's classes. I'm going to go to, I'm going to like remind people that they get 10% off at the smoothie shop because, some of us still work in clubs where you got to push that F&B minimum every month for your membership team. And so not that like the instructor that just comes in and teaches their class and leaves is worse. It's not like they're not doing their job. But my point of saying that is they need the power of their fingertips to choose how and when they want to communicate. And you've got information as a manager that you need them to know. So you have to alter your approach. I work a lot with colleges where I'll hear people say, well, students don't read their emails. What are we going to do? I'm like, stop emailing them. They're like, well, students don't read their email. I'm like, they're not going to communicate. That's not. And it's like, you have this data out there. Like there's factual data about this. So it's like, well, people are like, I'm going to invest all my information or all my energy on creating a Twitter following. You can go to the data, and Twitter's not used for that. Like, the number one platform is YouTube, which we're on right now. Like that is where the majority of people get their social media information. And so you have this national and international data that you can access from various like statistical sources. And then you've got to know who your instructors are and who they are as a person, and how they want to be treated, how they want to be communicated. We know too, we're like in this environment where we're fun. We like to have fun. We like to celebrate. Not everyone likes to have their birthday celebrated. I'm not quite sure why, but something, I love my birthday. I want everybody to know about my birthday. But even like, you want to create an environment where your instructors can thrive. So it's balancing, you have this factual information that what's trending in the communication world. You have to know the instructor as an individual, but you also need them to get the information that you need. And so you have to balance that. And it's not pretty. It's not like a seesaw. It's a spider web. And the cool thing about it is it can be beautiful, but it's complex. And, you just have to cater it to the individual. And that's where I think that we're getting to is it's not just like, here's your fact sheet, take it or leave it. It's customized, catered communication in the power of their fingertips.
I love it. Like mic drop on that. that really wraps up the whole picture. Yeah, exactly. No, I can't hear if I take my mic out. It is. You wrapped it up so well. I hope as a group fitness manager too, like you're hearing this and thinking about your specific instructors, thinking about your specific teams of instructors, because you're so right. The type of instructor who is really engaged with the facility and the team is very different. And then even like you mentioned earlier, yoga teachers, they communicate and they thrive with different communication than your cycling instructors do. So recognizing those things, still setting boundaries with them to understand, I love that we have Slack as your quick communication. You can also turn off the notifications there, whereas texting is not so fun. If you have your whole team texting you, stop it now. Like that's for like emergencies only. So finding that like I love how you described it as a spider web. It's like an ecosystem. There's this give and take. It can get complicated, but it can be beautiful if the expectations are you're correct, you're using the right tools, and like you said, you're speaking the right language in the right way. And good for you for saying, like you said, the younger people aren't reading emails, and it's like, then stop doing it. Don't force them to read it or they're not. You're so right. That's not going to happen. Well, thank you so much, Stephen. You're amazing. I so appreciate you being on my channel. I wanted to share with everyone that our next episode will be happening in September 9th, so just in a couple weeks. I'll be with Patricia Nelson. She's the group fitness director in Las Vegas for various clubs. And we're going to talk about, and you could probably talk to this too, Stephen, we're going to talk about divas and how group fitness divas exist, but she has this interesting take on how you can help them become assets on your team. And I do agree that could happen in some cases, not all, but in some cases it can. So from our communication, that's where we'll be sending you for next month. But again, Stephen, thank you so much for your time and appreciate you and all that you're doing. And I can't wait for you to start writing a book. Coming up next. I know.
Yes, it is. Ready or not, I am super excited. I'm super excited for it.
I can't wait. We'll bring you on when the book comes out too, and we'll talk about that. All right. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.